Hey, I'm Regular Zach, and this is my limited set review for Tarkir Dragonstorm. So again, we're only talking about the limited formats, draft and sealed. Nothing about constructed, nothing about commander. All those ratings would be completely different because they're different formats. We're also putting everything on an A to F grading scale, just a classic one from school. And if you want more information about that, there is information in the details below this video. Okay, we are now talking about the colorless cards and the land cards for the set. And we are starting off with Embermouth Sentinel. This is a 2-mana 2/1 artifact creature Chimera, and it says when this creature enters, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that card on top. If you control a dragon, put that card onto the battlefield tapped instead. Okay, so we've seen this card before. This is a very common thing. We always get the 2-mana 2/1 variant that like goes and helps you fix your lands. And this is a 3-color set, so this effect could be helpful in a pinch. However, this card is not very good. I do like the upside of being able to put it onto the battlefield tapped if you have a dragon, so that makes it not useless at the end of the game. Most of the time, because you like lose a whole draw step to draw your land, these cards are just bad, almost just always terrible. Besides, I think maybe the one in Strixhaven was okay, but like for the most part, these are just horrendous. So this is a D. Like this is a card that you don't really want to put in your deck, and you're not happy to put in your deck. Though the upside, if you have some dragons, maybe it just kind of ramps you at the end of the game, or at least doesn't do nothing when it hits the field. So okay, D for the Embermouth Sentinel. Next card is Dragonstorm Globe. It's a 3-mana artifact. It says each dragon you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and you can tap it for any color of mana. 3-mana mana rocks are not extremely exciting, but they do come in handy every once in a while. This one doesn't turn into a creature, which have the other mana rocks that we've liked do that. They turn into creatures or they affect the board in some way. This puts counters on your dragons, which means you need dragons for this to do much of anything. It is important to know, I think there's like a blue uncommon that searches this up and one other colorless card, so maybe there's something there. In a pinch, if you need some fixing, I guess you can put this in your deck, but I'm not really happy if this is in my deck. I think the counter thing is not that good, so this is like a D plus maybe, but I don't really like it. Next card is Watcher of the Wayside. It's a 3-mana 3/2 artifact creature golem. It says when this creature enters, target player mills 2 cards, you gain 2 life. Sure, I mean, this is a way to keep milling in your like Sultai decks or maybe your Harmonized like Teamer decks. But there have been other cards in the past that I still didn't like. There was like there's a dog in Outlaws of Thunder Junction that let you surveil 2. That was significantly better because you got to choose if you wanted to draw the cards or not. The fact that this is just straight up mill on like a 3-mana 3/2 body you're not excited with. You'd almost want it more if it's a 2/3, I think, just because it blocks better. But I don't know. This is a D again. Like I really hope I never have to play this card. Next up is Jadecast Sentinel. It's a 4-mana 1/5 artifact creature ape snake with reach, 1/5 with reach. It has an activated ability. You can pay 2 mana and tap it to put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. Okay, hear me out on this one. I do think that having this card in the set is helpful, and you will want to put this into your deck if you're playing a turbo mill strategy. I think this format's going to be probably pretty grindy, and so being able to put cards on the bottom of your library at the end of the game may save your life. So having a copy of this, it blocks for days. It unfortunately doesn't like actually kill most things, but it has 1 power, so at least it stops some stuff, X1s, you know, that is helpful. And yeah, so because this effect can be helpful at times, I'm going to give it a C-. That, you know, I would normally give this just a straight D because I'm not stoked on that. But I have run into situations recently where I wanted to be able to do something with my graveyard I put in my library. So I'm giving it a C-. That might be a little bit too high, but you will put this in your deck in those certain situations. Like Sultai decks might play 1 copy and they'll be okay with that. Next up is Boulderborn Dragon. It's a 5-mana 3/3 artifact creature dragon with flying and vigilance. And it says whenever this creature attacks, surveil 1. 5 mana, 3/3. It does have flying and vigilance, so there is that. And you get to surveil. That is something. I don't hate this card, but I don't really want to play it either. Again, this is one of the cards that can get tutored up by that like blue uncommon, so maybe if you have that card, I think that might be the only way you want to play this card. I'm really uninterested in playing it if I don't have some sort of synergy with that stuff going on. But yeah, I'm going to give this a D+ because of that. I'm sure I'll see it on the battlefield, but I don't want to play this card. Do you know what I mean? There's so many cool dragons in the set. This is not the one I want to play. So it's a D+. Me? All right, we're moving on to the monuments. So this is all the uncommon monuments. There's one for every 3-color pair, which is 5. This is the Abzan one. And so I'll read the first part, but then the next ones only matter the bottom changes, essentially. So this is a 2-mana artifact, and it says when this artifact enters, search your library for a basic plains, swamp, or forest card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And it also has an activated ability, so you can pay 1 white, black, green, so Abzan, and tap it and sacrifice it to create an XX white spirit creature token, where X is the greatest toughness among creatures you control. Activate only as a sorcery. I do think that these will be helpful to fix your colors throughout the set. You will probably be kind of begrudgingly play some of these. The fact that it does give you a creature later is nice. I think this one in particular looks cool because it has the word like X in it. So your brain starts, oh, what are all the possibilities of all the giant things they could make? But in reality, you will often probably find yourself in a situation where you're like either trying to crack this and they kill your last creature in response, or you don't have any creatures and it's the end of the game. So I'm really just looking at this as like, I'm fixing my lands and then I'll get something later. But of the monuments, I don't like this one very much. So I'm going to say it's like a C-. Like you'll play it to fix your mana, but it's not the best way to fix stuff. And yeah, it's the second ability is not that exciting. This one I like a lot more. So this is the Jeskai Monument. It's the same thing. 2-mana artifact enters, gets you a land of the Jeskai colors. But you can pay 1 and a Jeskai, so blue, red, white, to tap it and sacrifice it. Create 2 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying. Yes. You can only do it at sorcery speed, of course, because they all are like that. But this is way better than just some random XX, in my opinion. Getting 2 bodies and they fly. This will probably be able to kill people. It does the last stretches of damage, and if you're playing a long, grindy game, and you need to be able to either get in the air to kill your opponent, or have 2 chump blockers for your opponent's big dragon while you're waiting to top deck your bomb, I think this is just much better. Now, much better, that doesn't make the grade go up like a lot. This is still just a C, but I think I'm more interested in playing this card than the other one. It's also a cheap spell, and the Jeskai colors care about playing multiple spells in a turn. So, yeah, this is something. It's also, yeah, that's one thing. This is something you can do that's not casting a spell on your turn, so that you can save up spells for a double spell turn. I think I like this one the best. I like the Jeskai one the most, I think. But let's go talk about some of the other ones. Moving on to Mardu Monument. Same thing, 2-mana artifact, gets mountain, plains, or swamp. You can pay 2 red, white, black, and sacrifice it to create 3 1/1 red warrior creature tokens. They gain menace and haste until end turn. So these tokens that are being made, you get 3 bodies. So 5 mana for 3 bodies. This is kind of like a callback to the Goblin Brigade card from original Tarkir that when it unmorphed, it made 3 goblins, which was very strong, actually. That was a very good card. This gives it menace and haste, so that's really helpful. Just to punch in some extra damage. But they also don't have to be sacrificed. So this is a nice thing. I'm sure the Mardu deck will be happy to have some creatures that can block at some point. But in our early turns, are we really playing this to fix our mana? We'd much rather be getting on the board and like attacking in Mardu. So I don't know, maybe in like a bigger type build. I'm not sure about this one. I still think I'm going to give this a C-. Like this is kind of on the level of the Abzan one where I'm like, I'm not super stoked on this. But it'll make it into my deck to fix my mana. So, you know, what are you going to do? Next up, we have Sultai Monument. 2 mana. You can get a swamp, forest, or island. And you can pay 2 black, green, blue. Tap, sacrifice, create 2 2/2 black zombie druid creature tokens. Druid is strange to add to that, I guess. But okay, two bodies, two tutus. That's pretty all right. Okay, I don't hate that. The getting multiple bodies, especially in like this color pair, might utilize this a little bit more. It does more like value type stuff. Uh, but I still think this is more on the level of ones I'm not super excited to do. There's so many things that Sultai is going to be doing with their mana, like with renewing and all the stuff with their graveyard. I think it's still a C minus. Like most of these are C minuses. I like the Sultai one the most. But let's see what this last one is. Temur Monument, Forest Island Mountain for 2 mana. Blah 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 blah. But you can play. You can pay 3 green, blue, red to tap, sacrifice it. Create a 5/5 green elephant creature token. Okay, so this is what the Abzan is like wanting to do for cheaper mana, but you have to have other creatures. This is a card that actually gives you a 5/5, so it has 4 power, which is great because there's a lot of cards that care about creatures with large powers, 4 specifically. And you may run out of threats in that deck, and you also want to hit your land drops because you want to play big, really big things in that deck as well. So I like this one. So I think we like the Jeskai one, and we like the Temur one the most. Personally, I do. So again, this is like a C. All of them are C minuses except for Jeskai and Temur, which are just Cs. But I'd be happier to play this one. I'm much more interested in this, I think, personally. Even though it's not 2 pieces of cardboard, and I always want more pieces of cardboard, so like 3 tokens and 2 tokens sounds better. But a 5/5 is it's a real creature that could trade for 2 of theirs. So there is that. Much happier with this. All right. Moving right along, we have a rare. We have Dragon Fire Blade. It's 1 mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has hexproof from monocolored. And then it says the equip cost is 4, but this ability costs 1 less to activate for each color of the creature it targets. So the joke here is that it's a 1 mana artifact that equips for 1, essentially, gives +2/+2, and then your opponent has to use like multicolored removal, which they're probably not wanting to play multicolored removal, because the thing with multicolored removal is that usually you want to be able to cast your removal on time, and multicolored removal is a lot harder to cast, but usually more powerful. So this protects you from all the cheap little removal that people pick up, and they're kind of forced to have big, strong removal to use against this thing. +2/+2 is no joke, but it doesn't do anything else besides that. So yeah, okay, that's cool. I would first pick this card probably. If the pack is weak enough and you're just like, there's no other rare, you're like, sweet, Ghost Fireblade, nice. There's a card that was similar to this in Tarkir that like equipped for, like, it was really cheap to equip it to like colorless cards, so it was good to make all your morphs better. This one does not do that. It's actually just really expensive to put onto like any of these artifacts or any of the like monocolored cards. So I guess it kind of depends how many like, I don't know, multicolored creatures you have. But the actual ability is perfectly fine. It turns a lot of stuff into bigger things. I wish it gave it an ability, though, besides hexproof. I'm just going to give this like a C+. Like, this will go in your deck for sure. I don't think there's any way you're cutting this card from your deck if you have it. But are you like, is it the best card in your deck? I don't think so. I think it's fine. I like it. It fits, but not jumping out of my seat for this one. Next up, we have Mox Jasper, which is a 0 mana artifact at Mythic. It's a legendary artifact. And so this is free. Awesome. Free cards are really cool. Moxes are awesome. They just printed another one right here. We rarely get these. So obviously lots of attention on what this next thing does. So it adds 1 mana of any color. Okay. 0 mana add... Okay. 0 mana rock makes mana. That's great. Activate only if you control a dragon. Huh. This card is weird. This is bad. Like in limited, this is terrible, right? Like you don't want any card that like helps you. Like you want to be able to cast your dragons. That's what these are supposed to do. Because the game will probably revolve around big creatures, dragons. And I don't really know if I need this after that. Right? Like, maybe this goes into a Jeskai deck so you can, like, double spell on turns that, like, much earlier. But you're just putting a Cheerio in your deck, essentially. And it doesn't do anything by itself, so you need other things to help it. This is like an F. I don't think you want to take this card. Like if it comes on the wheel, sure, maybe try it out. But you're not first picking this. This doesn't do anything. Like it just the upside of having this with the dragon is just not that good. Yeah, this is a constructed card. This is for Commander CDH maybe. Like I don't want to play this card. So I will pass it to you in the draft. That's what will happen. F for Mox Jasper. Don't play this card. All right, next up we have Ugin, Eye of the Storms. Hell yeah, buddy. Look at this thing. 7 mana for a 7 loyalty mythic legendary planeswalker, Ugin. It has 2 abilities before the whole like actual planeswalker stuff. So it says, when you cast this spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. Yeah, buddy. What is this? Just like, it just hits everything, basically, except for your opponent's Ugin. So if you try to Ugin their Ugin, that's not going to work out. But that's awesome. This is just like a planeswalker that's a meteor golem, essentially. It also exiles it, so you don't have to worry about them doing graveyard crap. And it's on cast, so it doesn't even matter. Like if they can't do anything, right? Even they counter this, you still get to exile something. It also says whenever you cast a colorless spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. What? All right. All right. Yeah. That's good. Unfortunately, this is our last colorless spell for, the set. And I haven't really liked that many of the other ones, so, maybe don't lean too heavy into that part of the card when you're drafting this. I think just being able to exile one thing when it comes down and then use the rest of the ability. Let me just read the rest of the card too. It has both of those pieces of text, and then you can +2. So you start at 7, +2. You gain 3 life and draw a card. Nice, awesome. You can 0 to add 3 colorless mana. All right, and then -11, the ultimate. It says search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards, exile them, then shuffle until end of turn. You may cast those cards without paying their mana cost. All right, so really what I'm happy with Ugin is that we get to come down, Meteor Golem something, and then just start ticking up and drawing cards. We're drawing cards, we're gaining life. Our opponent has to choose between, okay, do we attack the Ugin or attack me? But they don't really want to do that because if they attack Ugin, like nothing really happens. Like you have to... I basically gained... not just 9, I gained 12 life, right? You play Ugin, you gain 3 life, draw a card, exile one of their things. They try to attack it. You can either try to block or not. It soaks up 9 points of damage. So we basically gain 12 life. I don't know. 7 mana, exile something, draw a card, gain 12 life, at least. I don't know. That's a huge thing. And if they start attacking you... hopefully you'll be able to have some sort of board state, but you draw an extra card every turn, and if you do happen to have other artifacts in your deck, you can just slam them and start exiling stuff. I do think that you might want some of the monuments in this deck would be kind of interesting. 5 color sounds bad, but being able to have that extra effect happen seems pretty good. I said the monuments, but maybe some of the creatures would be a little bit more effective just because they actually do other things. You don't have to worry about so much colored mana. But no, this card looks like an A. Like, I'm slamming this for sure. And probably not... I might add a 1 or 2 extra artifacts, but for the most part, I think just being able to come down and do what it does, that's good enough. That is good enough. Drawing a card extra every turn and exiling something on the way in... even though it's 7 mana, I'm fine with that. I will have other cards to play. Awesome card. Super sweet. Probably more exciting and constructed because the ult here is... you don't really need to ult this card in limited. Like, if you get there, cool, but you probably don't want to build your deck to do the ult thing. So keep that in mind. All right, next up, we have the lands. So we have Evolving Wilds back. Love me Evolving Wilds. This was in original Tarkir. Great card. Or was it Terramorphic Expanse? Actually, I can't remember. They're the same card, though. Whatever. But Evolving Wilds, we all know it. We love it. You can tap it, sacrifice it, and search your land for a basic... search your library for a basic land, put on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. It fixes anything you want, which is fantastic. Three color set, gonna love this card. It's still, it fits in your deck, but not like, I'm probably not going too crazy over Evolving Wilds. So that's like a C plus. But I like it a lot. Evolving Wilds is great. You will pick these up. We may devolve into this becomes like a B level card if it's grindy enough and it's just 5-color soup. So I hope that doesn't happen. But in that situation, like it may become first pickable. Next up, we have the gain lands. So we get all the gain lands, which there's 10 of them, all different 2-color paired ones. They enter tapped, and when they enter, you gain a life, and they can tap for 2 colors. Great. These are like C's. I think in this set, we have more lands that we're going to talk about in just a second. So being able to tap for 2 different colors is awesome. But it also, they might depend on where your deck is. I'm saying all these caveats, but I love these things. But these are, definitely, maybe the first one is a C+, and then all the subsequent ones are a little bit less. But the ones I'm more excited to play are the uncommon ones. We have Tri-lands are back, baby. Frontier Bivouac is an uncommon land. It enters tapped, but it taps for 3 colors. 3. Green, blue, red, whatever you need. You play this on turn 1, it fixes everything in your team or deck. You are stoked to have this card. And this is why I would prioritize these ones much higher over the gain lands. If they're, the color pairs that you're, obviously the trio that you're playing, amazing. Still not a B-level card, I think. But it will be a big sign if you see this coming around being like, oh, nobody's playing Teamer? Okay, I'll take this. So C+ for the Frontier Bivouac. But all these lands are great. You were going to want to pick up some of these for your deck because you need good fixing. And I like these so much better than like the monuments and all the filter creatures and all the other ways to fix your mana. This is how I want to fix mana. I want my lands to do it for me. I don't really want to be hoping to pay mana to do it. Do you know what I mean? I just want to have my land drop fix my lands. And these are a perfect way to do that. So C+, could even be B- in the end of the format. We'll have to find out. But we're moving on to the rare lands. We have 6 of them. We're starting with the colorless one. This is Maelstrom of the Spirit Dragon. It's a rare land. Taps for colorless. Ugh, colorless. That's not good in the 3-color set. Already a boo. Boo. Don't like it. It does add 1 mana of any color. You can spend this mana to only cast dragon spells or omen spells. So if you have a bunch of omens in your deck, this will be helpful. Kind of interesting with like splashing dragons. Like let's say you're playing like a Jeskai deck and you have I'm just pulling this out of thin air. I think there's an uncommon dragon that the omen is green and the dragon is blue. And so you can play the green side of that card. So maybe that's exciting to you. But maybe not enough to play this colorless land in a 3-color deck. I don't know about that one. A little nervous. You can pay 4 mana, tap and sacrifice this land and search your library for a dragon card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Tutoring in general in draft is not always the most exciting thing, especially when it costs 4 mana. It's 4 mana. You have to sacrifice a land. So this is eventually, it's basically 5 mana because you have to tap this land to do it. You also lose this land, go get a dragon, but you need lands to cast your big dragons. So this like puts you way back. I don't know. Don't take this card. I think this is like a D. Like I'm sure it'll be okay, but it might also be just like an F. Like I just don't really like this card very much at all. Only colorless? No. Next up, in the rare land category, we have Kori Mountain Monastery, which is the red land. This land enters tapped unless you control a plains or an island. Well, that's cool. All right, so could just be a tapped mountain, but you have the possibility of it just being like a sweet land that comes into play untapped. It only taps for red, so that's kind of a bummer, but you can pay 3 in a red and tap it, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Whoa, that's pretty nice. I do think it will fit into the Jeskai deck best. I mean, you can see the Jeskai watermark on it, so this is obviously... It's also a monastery. It's like telling you it wants to be Jeskai. But that deck, at the end of the game, a lot of your cards are going to care about casting 2 spells in a turn. And what will happen is that when you're casting multiple spells, you just run out of cards. That just happens, right? And so you might have to take a turn off to do a big... So it's like take a turn off to draw a spell, have a big turn where you cast 2 spells, going back and forth. So the turns where you aren't casting spells, doing something like this where you get more card advantage so you can get through your lands to make sure you can like double spell, will be really helpful. So in that deck, I think this is pretty nice. 4 mana is a lot though, but I think that's kind of the going rate for that type of ability just on kind of random stuff. But yeah, this is like a C. This is pretty solid, but I'm not like so stoked on that. I'll definitely like slot it in my deck, but it's not a high priority, especially because it only taps for 1 color. So taking picks on lands that don't fix you is kind of scary. But yeah, I do like it though. Next up, we have Dalkovan Encampment. It's the white land. It says enters tapped unless you control a swamp or a mountain. So this is the Mardu one. It taps for white. And you can pay 2 and a white and tap it. Whenever you attack this turn, create 2 1/1 red warrior creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. So it basically just gives one of your creatures mobilize 2. All right. Yeah, getting extra creatures is a big game. You don't get to keep them, but having a couple extra points of damage somewhere in there seems good. Yeah, I do like this one a little bit more than the other one, but I still think I'm gonna give it a C. I'm still gonna give it a C. It doesn't jump up a letter grade just because they can only do one thing. And if you're in the situation in the game where you actually have to chump or do something else, this only works if you have creatures on the battlefield as well. And you don't get to keep these ones. So it's a little bit of a win more card, but I still like it. And getting some utility out of your lands will be helpful. But it's just a C. I don't think it falls down to a C-, but just a C. It'll help pack on the power at the end of the game. Next up, we have Great Arashan City, which is the black one. This is also the Abzan one, so it enters tapped unless you control a forest or a plains, and it taps for black. And it has an activated ability. You can pay 1 and a black, tap it, exile a creature card from your graveyard, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token. Here we go. I like this one a lot more. So this creates creatures, but they are chump blockers, which would be probably helpful. And it exiles cards from your graveyard. And there is a synergy of cards leaving your graveyard. Now, it has to be a creature card, so, you might not want it to be in a deck where you're hoping to reanimate stuff, or you want to have a high number of creatures in your graveyard or something like that. But it does give you 1/1s at the end of the game, and I think I like this one the most. Just because I think having chump blockers is a big game. Just getting bodies on the board will be really helpful. And every turn being able to do this is also super cheap. It's two mana with the cost of exiling stuff that might actually fit into what your deck wants to do. So yeah, I think this does it for me. Cheap enough. And yeah, C+. Good card. I like this one the most. Next up, we have the green one, which is Kishla Village. This is the Sultai one, so it enters tapped unless you control an island or a swamp. Taps for green, and you can pay 3 and a green to tap it and surveil 2. This one's actually really good too. Being able to surveil at the end of the game, like obviously all the land abilities have to be ones that are good in the late game, because that's when you're going to want to actually do that. You rarely want to activate these when you have cards in your hand. Like, that's just not really how these things work. But being able to surveil 2 to like either turbocharge your graveyard, or not really turbocharge, but do something, or just make sure that you're not drawing lands at the end of the game. That's the biggest one. Really helpful. So this card's sweet. It's interesting to see this on a green card, because usually the blue ones or the black ones do this. So nice, super sweet. I still think this is a C though. I want stuff that really affects the board. But, maybe making sure you don't draw lands is going to be a bigger game in the end. So maybe it does creep up to a C+, but I'm going to stick with a C for now. Still say I like the black one the most, but I'm ready to be wrong. All right, last up. This is our last card. We are talking about Mistrise Village. It's the blue one. It is also the Teamer one. So it says this land enters tapped unless you control a mountain or a forest. Taps for blue, and you can pay blue, tap it. The next spell you cast this turn can't be countered. All right. This card is really good in constructed formats. We are not really worried about people countering our spells, at certain points of the game in limited. Like, okay, sorry, at certain points of the game, yes, sometimes there are counter spells, but not so much that you need a card in your deck to play off curve to try to make sure that they can't counter it. Like, I just don't think that our draft format's going to be like that. This is not something that's going to be extremely helpful for us, and it's just going to waste a card slot in your deck. This seems like it's going to be really good in constructed. Like in standard, it'll be sweet. Commander, it can like help your commander not get countered. That's all those types of things. I think it's much more exciting in those formats, or even older formats, right? Legacy perhaps would be wanting something like this. So that's the abilities that they care about. And we don't care about this very much. So with that, this is an F. This is a big fat F. I don't think you should put this in your deck. You're going to waste picks on this. And having an island that comes into play tapped most of the time, maybe it'll help you once in a while. But I just don't think it's worth it. Just don't put this in your deck. Don't do it. All right, well, folks, that's the end of the Colorless set review, or like this chunk of it. Watch all the other videos. I have one of every color and all the multicolored cards as well, which is that one's a rough one. But yeah, if you're interested in more content like this or draft content, I have a bunch of those videos as well. But thank you all very much. And yeah, I hope some of this has been helpful to you. Leave comments below, subscribe, do all the things that you should do for YouTube videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you on my stream or on YouTube videos later. Bye.